April 3rd, 1945. The Pacific War is almost over. From the black volcanic runways of Iwo Jima, B-29 superfortresses lift into the sky every single day. But on this morning, one of them takes off and never comes back. 11 experienced airmen, 70 tons of aircraft, perfect weather, unlimited visibility. 30 minutes after takeoff, the bomber vanishes. No mayday call, no radio distress, no wreckage, no bodies, nothing. 2 other bombers fly the same route. They see nothing. The sky is completely clear. Navy destroyers search over 3,000 square miles of open ocean. They find nothing. The timeline doesn't work. The physics don't work. And the evidence, or the total absence of it, doesn't work. This is the story of Lucky Lady, the B-29 that flew into clear sky and simply ceased to exist. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button, because by the end of this story, you'll have questions that 79 years later still haven't been answered. The volcanic ash from Mount Suribachi still drifted across Iwo Jima's North Field on the morning of April 3rd, 1945, settling like gray snow on the wings of the B-29s lined up for the Tokyo strike. Captain Richard Anderson ran his hand along the aluminum skin of Lucky Lady, feeling for the rivets he'd touched before 28 previous missions. The metal was warm under the Pacific sun, already climbing toward the kind of clear sky that made bombardiers smile and navigators curse the lack of cloud cover for concealment. I was Technical Sergeant Robert Torres, flight engineer assigned to Anderson's crew since our B-29 training in Kansas. 26 years old, raised in a machine shop in Corpus Christi, and I knew every bolt, wire, and hydraulic line in that aircraft. That morning's pre-flight inspection took me 43 minutes, longer than usual because Lucky Lady had just come out of a 72-hour maintenance cycle, new number 3 engine after the last mission when we'd caught flak over Yokohama. I personally watched the mechanics torque see every mounting bolt. "Torres, she ready to fly or are you going to marry her?" Staff Sergeant William Chen climbed up through the forward hatch, radio gear already strapped to his chest. Chen was second-generation San Francisco, volunteered the day after Pearl Harbor despite his family being eyed with suspicion by half the country. Best radio operator in the 497th Bombardment Group. Could pull signals out of static that other operators missed entirely. "She's tighter than a new pair of boots," I told him, signing off on the inspection sheet. "Everything green across the board." First Lieutenant James Mitchell arrived with the navigation charts, his MIT ring catching the sunlight. Mathematics degree, bomber pilot wings earned in 6 months of compressed training that would have taken 2 years in peacetime. He'd calculated fuel consumption, wind drift, and bombing approach angles for every mission we'd flown. Never been off by more than 30 seconds on an estimated time of arrival. "Weather's perfect," Mitchell said, spreading the charts across Lucky Lady's wing. "Ceiling unlimited, visibility 10+ miles, winds favorable at bombing altitude. We'll have company, 12 other birds on the same route, staggered at 5-minute intervals. Iron Horse takes off 5 minutes ahead of us, Diamondback 5 minutes behind." Captain Anderson joined us, flight jacket open despite the morning chill that still clung to the island. 28 combat missions showed in the lines around his eyes, the gray starting at his temples despite being only 31 years old. He'd flown B-17S over Germany before transferring to the Pacific, seen his share of aircraft that didn't come home. "Gentlemen, this is a milk run," Anderson said, tapping the route on Mitchell's chart. "Straight shot to Tokyo hit the marshalling yard, straight shot back. Intelligence says Japanese fighter strength is down 70% from last month. Most of their fuel is going to kamikaze training. We drop our load, we come home, and tomorrow we do it again until there's nothing left to bomb." Sergeant Frank Romano climbed down from the tailgun position, his Brooklyn accent carrying across the hard stand. "Captain, I just cleaned and loaded all defensive positions. Ammo count is full. Gun mechanisms test perfect. I'm telling you, we ain't gonna need to fire a single round today." The rest of the crew assembled for the final briefing. Bombardier, navigator, gunners, 11 men total, each one I'd flown with for months. We knew each other's voices in the dark, could identify each crew member by their footsteps on the metal deck. The kind of familiarity that kept you alive when 30,000 feet of altitude was the only thing between you and Japanese home islands. At 0847 hours, we fired up all 4 radar, 3350 engines in sequence. Each one caught and settled into its proper rhythm, the sound that had become more familiar than silence. I monitored pressures, temperatures, RPMs, every gauge showing exactly what it should. Number 3 engine, the fresh replacement, ran smoothest of all. "Iwo Tower, this is Lucky Lady requesting taxi clearance," Anderson transmitted, his voice steady as always. "Lucky Lady, Iwo Tower, you're cleared to taxi runway 07. Wind 060 at 8 knots, altimeter 299er2, time now 0851. We rolled out to the runway behind Iron Horse, watching her lift off in a cloud of volcanic dust. 12 other B-29s would follow us at precise intervals, a steel river flowing north toward Japan. The tower had us timed down to the minute. Fuel efficiency and bomb concentration required choreography that would have impressed a ballet company. At 0903 hours, we released brakes and began our takeoff roll. Lucky Lady needed every foot of Iwo's runway, 70 tons of aircraft fuel and bombs accelerating through the crosswind. The tail came up at 80 knots, and at 135 knots, Anderson rotated, and we climbed away from the black sand island that had cost 6,000 Marines their lives to capture. Gear up," Anderson ordered. I pulled the lever and felt the satisfying thunk of the wheels locking into the wells. "Flaps to climb. Mitchell, give me a heading." 355 degrees, Captain. Climb to 22,000, level off, and run lean mixture until we hit the Japanese coast. I settled into my flight engineer station, running my eyes across the panels, oil pressure perfect, fuel flow balanced, cylinder head temperatures climbing normally as we worked our way up through cooler air. Behind me, Chen was already testing his radio equipment, running through frequencies to verify everything worked. At 0913 hours, exactly 10 minutes after takeoff, Chen made our scheduled radio check. "Iwo Tower, Lucky Lady, position report. 28 miles north, altitude 12,000 climbing, all systems normal." "Lucky Lady, Iwo Tower, roger your position. Weather clear your route. Iron Horse reports normal at +5, Diamondback departing now at -5. Maintain schedule." "Wilco Tower, Lucky Lady out." That was the last transmission anyone ever heard from our aircraft. I remember Mitchell checking his navigation at 0923 hours, 20 minutes into the flight. "Dead on course, Captain. We'll cross the Bonin Islands in 40 minutes, then it's open water to Japan." Anderson nodded, trimming the aircraft for level flight as we passed through 18,000 feet. "Chen, next position report at 0943. Torres, how's she flying?" "Like a dream, sir. All 4 engines synchronized, fuel consumption right on Mitchell's calculations. At this rate, we'll have reserve fuel for an hour of loitering if we need it." Romano called from the tail position. "Hey, I can still see Iwo behind us. Looks like a black smudge on the ocean. Can't believe we're leaving that hellhole for a nice, relaxing flight over Tokyo." The crew laughed. It was the kind of dark humor that got you through missions where people tried to kill you with explosive shells and fighter aircraft. Mitchell was already working his next calculation. Chen was logging frequencies in his radio book. Anderson was scanning the sky with the practiced eye of a pilot who'd survived too many missions to trust clear weather. At 0935 hours, I noted all engine parameters in my log, every number exactly where it should be. I remember thinking that this was indeed going to be a milk run, that Romano was right about not needing to fire the guns, that maybe the war really was winding down, and we'd all get to go home and forget about the sound of flak bursting and the smell of hydraulic fluid mixed with fear. At 0943 hours, Chen reached for his radio transmitter to make the scheduled position report. He never made that transmission. None of us ever made another transmission, because somewhere between 0935 and 0943 hours, on a clear Pacific morning with unlimited visibility and perfect flying weather, Lucky Lady and her crew of 11 men simply ceased to exist. Lieutenant Colonel Howard Barnes stood in the Iwo Jima control tower at 0945 hours, watching the clock tick past the scheduled position report from Lucky Lady. Radio operator Corporal Dennis Walsh sat at his station, headphones pressed tight against his ears, fine-tuning the frequency that should have carried Captain Anderson's voice. "Still nothing, sir," Walsh said. "Iron Horse reported on schedule at 0938. Diamondback just checked in at 0944. Lucky Lady should have transmitted 60 seconds ago." Barnes had been a bomber squadron commander for 2 years, long enough to know that missed radio checks could mean anything from equipment failure to pilot distraction to enemy action. But the knot in his stomach told him this felt different. "Keep trying to raise them. Get me Iron Horse on the horn." Walsh worked his transmitter. "Iron Horse, Iwo Tower, do you have visual contact with Lucky Lady at your -5 position?" Captain Vincent Corelli's voice came back immediately, southern drawl calm and clear. "Iwo Tower, Iron Horse, negative visual contact, but we wouldn't expect any. 5-minute spacing puts them below our horizon at this altitude. Sky conditions are severe clear up here. I can see 40, maybe 50 miles in every direction. Nothing but blue water and blue sky." "Iron Horse, can you attempt radio contact with Lucky Lady on flight frequency?" A pause, then Corelli's voice returned. "Iwo Tower, we've been transmitting to Lucky Lady on flight frequency for the last 2 minutes. No response. Their radio might be out, but that bird should still be visible to Diamondback behind them." Barnes grabbed the second radio handset. "Diamondback, Iwo Tower, do you have Lucky Lady visual?" "Iwo Tower, Diamondback," came the reply from Captain Thomas Reed. "Negative visual, and we should. We're at 14,000 feet, climbing on the same route Lucky Lady flew 10 minutes ago. Weather is clear as glass. I can see Iron Horse above us at our +5 position, but there's nothing between us and Iron Horse. No aircraft, no contrails, no smoke. Sky is empty." The knot in Barnes's stomach pulled tighter. 2 B-29s bracketing Lucky Lady's position, both with unlimited visibility, neither one seeing anything. He'd lost aircraft before, flak, fighters, mechanical failures that sent bombers spinning into the Pacific. But those losses left evidence: debris fields, oil slicks, life rafts bobbing in the swell, radio calls of Mayday, or at least the burst of static from an explosion. Lucky Lady had given them nothing. Just silence. "Walsh, get Air Sea Rescue on alert. I want PBY Catalinas in the air within 30 minutes, searching Lucky Lady's projected flight path from takeoff to last known position. Contact the Navy. I want destroyers running search patterns. And get me the maintenance chief who signed off on Lucky Lady's pre-flight." Master Sergeant Carl Hodges arrived in the tower 14 minutes later, his maintenance logs clutched in grease-stained hands. Hodges had been keeping B-29s flying since the first ones arrived in theater, knew the aircraft better than most pilots. "Colonel, I personally oversaw Lucky Lady's 72-hour inspection," Hodges said, spreading the paperwork across Barnes's desk. "New number 3 engine, complete systems check, full fuel load verified. That aircraft was mission-ready in every respect. Torres himself did the pre-flight, best flight engineer in your group. If something was wrong, he would have caught it." Barnes scanned the logs, every checkbox marked, every signature present, every measurement within tolerances. "What about sabotage, disgruntled mechanic, Japanese infiltrator?" Sir, this is Iwo Jima. We took this island 3 weeks ago. There are no Japanese infiltrators. We're still digging the last defenders out of caves, and my men don't sabotage aircraft. They know every one of those bombers carries 11 American lives. The first PBY Catalina lifted off from Iwo at 10:23 hours, followed by 3 more at staggered intervals. Barnes stood on the tower balcony, watching them disappear north toward the search area. The ocean looked peaceful from altitude, deep blue stretching to the horizon. Somewhere in that water, Lucky Lady should have been, either flying north or floating in pieces. By 1200 hours, the search aircraft had covered 80 square miles of Lucky Lady's projected route. Radio transmissions came back in steady, depressing rhythm. Search Alpha, negative contact. No debris, no oil slick, no wreckage observed. Search Bravo, negative contact. Sea state calm, visibility excellent, nothing in search area. Search Charlie, negative contact. We are flying the exact route Lucky Lady should have taken. Weather conditions perfect, no sign of aircraft or crew. At 14:30 hours, the Navy destroyer USS Mansfield radioed its report. Commander Phillips had run his ship along Lucky Lady's flight path at flank speed, lookout scanning with binoculars, radar sweeping for any metallic signature. Iwo Tower, Mansfield actual. We have completed search pattern Alpha, radar contact negative, visual contact negative. We have observed no debris, no fuel slick, no life rafts, no bodies, no wreckage of any kind. Sea conditions are calm with 1-foot swells. Visibility is excellent. If a B-29 went down in this area, we would see evidence. There is no evidence. Barnes sat in his office that night, smoking cigarettes and reviewing the impossible data. Lucky Lady had departed Iwo Jima at 09:03 hours under perfect weather conditions. Aircraft was mechanically sound, crew was experienced, route was clear of enemy activity. Radio contact normal at 09:13 hours, silence at 09:43 hours. Aircraft bracketing. Lucky Lady's position, Iron Horse ahead, Diamondback behind, reported seeing nothing unusual. Weather conditions were described by both crews as severe clear with visibility exceeding 50 miles. A B-29 Superfortress was not a small aircraft. She was 99 feet long with a wingspan of 141 feet, 70 tons of metal, fuel, bombs, and men. She couldn't simply vanish. But that's exactly what Lucky Lady had done. The search continued for 4 more days. 12 PBY Catalinas, 6 Navy destroyers, and 2 submarines combed over 3,000 square miles of ocean. They found nothing. No debris, no oil, no bodies, no life rafts, no wreckage, no evidence that Lucky Lady had ever existed, except for the paperwork Barnes held in his hands. Takeoff logs, crew manifests, maintenance records, and 11 families waiting for news that would never come. On April 8th, Barnes received orders to cease search operations and file his report. He sat at his typewriter, staring at the blank page, trying to find words that would explain the inexplicable. Subject: loss of B-29 aircraft, serial number 44-27453. Call sign Lucky Lady. On April 3rd, 1945, at 09:03 hours, B-29 aircraft Lucky Lady departed North Field, Iwo Jima, for combat mission against Tokyo marshalling yards. Aircraft Commander Captain Richard Anderson, crew of 11. Last radio contact 09:13 hours, position normal. All systems reported operational. Aircraft failed to make scheduled 09:43 hours position report. Extensive search operations conducted April 3rd to 7th, covering 3,000-plus square miles. No wreckage, debris, or survivors located. Weather conditions, clear, unlimited visibility, calm seas. Mechanical status. Aircraft recently serviced, all systems operational per pre-flight inspection. Enemy action, unlikely. No Japanese fighters reported in area. No anti-aircraft batteries within range of last known position. Conclusion: undetermined. Aircraft and crew presumed lost. Cause of loss unknown. Barnes pulled the report from the typewriter and signed it. The word undetermined felt like a lie, but what else could he write? Aircraft disappeared in clear sky with no witnesses, no debris, no explanation. The families would receive telegrams. Missing in action. Not killed in action because there were no bodies. Not shot down because there was no evidence of enemy contact. Just missing, as if 11 men and 70 tons of aircraft had stepped through a door that closed behind them. Lieutenant Mitchell's parents in Boston would receive a telegram. Staff Sergeant Chen's family in San Francisco, Sergeant Romano's mother in Brooklyn, my own parents in Corpus Christi, Captain Anderson's wife and 2 children in Ohio, 10 more families scattered across America, all getting the same devastating non-answer. The 497th Bombardment Group flew missions to Tokyo for another 4 months until Japan surrendered. Iron Horse completed her tour and went home. Diamondback was shot down over Osaka in July. Crew recovered, casualties treated, wreckage photographed. Those losses made sense. Flak and fighters and mechanical failures made sense. Lucky Lady's disappearance made no sense at all. On April 8th, Barnes received orders to cease search operations and file his report. He sat at his typewriter, staring at the blank page, trying to find words that would explain the inexplicable. Subject: Loss of B-29 aircraft, serial number 44-27453, call sign Lucky Lady. On April 3rd, 1945, at 09:03 hours, B-29 aircraft Lucky Lady departed North Field, Iwo Jima, for combat mission against Tokyo marshalling yards. Aircraft Commander Captain Richard Anderson, crew of 11. Last radio contact 0913 hours, position normal. All systems reported operational. Aircraft failed to make scheduled 0943 hours position report. Extensive search operations conducted April 3rd to 7th. Covering 3,000-plus square miles. No wreckage, debris, or survivors located. Weather conditions: clear, unlimited visibility, calm seas. Mechanical status: aircraft recently serviced, all systems operational per pre-flight inspection. Enemy action: unlikely. No Japanese fighters reported in area. No anti-aircraft batteries within range of last known position. Conclusion: undetermined. Aircraft and crew presumed lost. Cause of loss unknown. Barnes pulled the report from the typewriter and signed it. The word undetermined felt like a lie, but what else could he write? Aircraft disappeared in clear sky with no witnesses, no debris, no explanation. The families would receive telegrams. Missing in action. Not killed in action because there were no bodies. Not shot down because there was no evidence of enemy contact. Just missing, as if 11 men and 70 tons of aircraft had stepped through a door that closed behind them. Lieutenant Mitchell's parents in Boston would receive a telegram. Staff Sergeant Chen's family in San Francisco, Sergeant Romano's mother in Brooklyn, my own parents in Corpus Christi, Captain Anderson's wife and 2 children in Ohio, 10 more families scattered across America, all getting the same devastating non-answer. The 497th Bombardment Group flew missions to Tokyo for another 4 months until Japan surrendered. Iron Horse completed her tour and went home. Diamondback was shot down over Osaka in July. Crew recovered, casualties treated, wreckage photographed. Those losses made sense. Flak and fighters and mechanical failures made sense. Lucky Lady's disappearance made no sense at all. 9:03 hours. Lucky Lady airborne from runway 07, Iwo Jima. Tower confirms visual contact during climb-out. Aircraft performance normal. 9:13 hours. Radio check transmitted by Staff Sergeant Chen. Position 28 miles north of Iwo Jima. Altitude 12,000 feet and climbing. Iwo Tower acknowledges transmission. Signal strength normal. 0913 to 0943 hours. No radio contact. This was normal. Next scheduled check at 0943. 0918 hours. Iron Horse, 5 minutes ahead of Lucky Lady's position, reports normal flight conditions. Captain Corelli's log notes, weather KAVU, ceiling and visibility unlimited. No traffic, no enemy contact. 0928 hours. Diamondback departs Iwo Jima, following identical route 5 minutes behind Lucky Lady. 0938 hours. Iron Horse makes scheduled position report, 58 miles north of Iwo Jima, altitude 22,000 feet. No visual or radio contact with Lucky Lady, which is expected given the 5-minute separation. 9:43 hours. Lucky Lady fails to make scheduled position report. 9:44 hours. Diamondback makes position report 28 miles north of Iwo Jima, exactly where Lucky Lady had been at 9:13 hours. Captain Reed reports, sky completely clear. Can see Iron Horse above us. Nothing between us and Iron Horse. Weather perfect. Ashford's team focused on that 30-minute window between 0913 and 0943 hours. Somewhere in that interval, Lucky Lady had ceased to exist, but the mathematics didn't work. Major Ashford's report included a section that would have been classified if it hadn't been so baffling. Timeline analysis based on B-29 cruise speed of 230 miles per hour at climbing altitude, Lucky Lady should have traveled 115 miles between 0913 radio check and 0943 scheduled report. At 0943, aircraft should have been 143 miles north of Iwo Jima. However, Diamondback aircraft, departing 25 minutes after Lucky Lady and flying identical route at identical speed, encountered no debris, no wreckage, no oil slick along this path. Visual conditions were optimal, unlimited ceiling, 50-plus mile visibility. A B-29 that crashes leaves an extensive debris field, wreckage floats. Oil from ruptured fuel tanks creates slicks visible for miles. Life rafts deploy automatically. Emergency radio beacons activate on water contact. Diamondback's crew observed none of these indicators while flying through the exact airspace Lucky Lady should have occupied. Conclusion: Lucky Lady did not crash between 0913 and 0943 hours, or Diamondback would have observed evidence. However, Lucky Lady also did not continue normal flight, or she would have made her 0943 position report. This timeline paradox admits no conventional explanation. Ashford interviewed Captain Reed from Diamondback personally. The conversation was recorded in the investigation file. Captain, you're certain you saw nothing unusual? Major, I'm certain I saw nothing at all. That's what was unusual. We were flying through airspace where a B-29 should have been, either flying or falling. The sky was empty. I've flown 46 combat missions. I know what aircraft look like, what wreckage looks like, what search conditions look like. There was nothing there. Could Lucky Lady have deviated from course? To where? We're talking about the Pacific Ocean. Nearest land was Iwo behind us or the Bonin Islands ahead. If they'd turned east or west, Iron Horse or our aircraft would have seen them. B-29s don't hide. They're huge and they leave contrails. We saw nothing. The Navy added their own impossibility to the investigation. Destroyers had searched 3,000 square miles. A B-29 carries over 6,000 gallons of fuel. When aviation gasoline hits water, it creates a distinctive slick that persists for hours, visible from aircraft and ships. The search teams found no fuel slicks. A B-29 carries thousands of pounds of equipment, radio gear, oxygen bottles, ammunition, bombs, survival equipment. When an aircraft hits water, this equipment scatters. It floats or sinks, but it leaves traces. The search teams found no equipment. A B-29 carries 11 men. Even if the aircraft sank immediately, unlikely given the aluminum construction and sealed compartments, body surface. Life vests inflate automatically. The search teams found no bodies, no life vests, no personal effects. Most telling, radar. The Navy picket ship USS Callahan was stationed 130 miles north of Iwo Jima, running search radar continuously. Lucky Lady should have appeared on Callahan's radar scopes around 0945 hours, given our speed and heading. Callahan's radar log showed no contact. Iron Horse appeared on radar at 0940 hours, exactly as predicted. Diamondback appeared at 1015 hours, exactly as predicted. The radar worked perfectly. It just never saw Lucky Lady. Ashford's final report concluded with a paragraph that must have pained him to write. After exhaustive investigation, this board cannot determine the cause of loss for B-29, serial number 44-27453. All conventional explanations have been examined and eliminated. The aircraft did not crash, no debris field observed. The aircraft did not continue flight, no radio contact, no radar return. The aircraft did not deviate from course. Bracketing aircraft saw nothing. The aircraft did not suffer catastrophic mechanical failure, would have produced distress call and debris. The aircraft did not encounter enemy action, no Japanese forces in area, no combat observed. The aircraft and crew simply disappeared from existence somewhere between 0913 and 0943 hours on April 3rd, 1945, under perfect flying conditions in surveilled airspace with no physical evidence of loss. 11 crew members declared missing in action, presumed dead. Bodies not recovered. Next of kin notified. Case closed. The families received their telegrams in April 1945. My parents in Corpus Christi. Captain Anderson's wife in Ohio, left to raise 2 children alone. Lieutenant Mitchell's parents in Boston. Staff Sergeant Chen's family in San Francisco, who'd already endured suspicion and prejudice for their ancestry. Sergeant Romano's mother in Brooklyn. 6 other families scattered across America. Missing in action meant they couldn't bury us, couldn't hold funerals, couldn't close the book on their grief. My mother kept my room exactly as I'd left it, waiting for news that never came. Anderson's wife refused to believe he was dead. No body meant no proof. She waited for years, checking every returning prisoner list, every belated casualty report. The War Department buried the investigation report in classified files. Lucky Lady became a statistic, one of dozens of B-29s lost during the final months of the war. The official records listed us as lost to unknown causes, which sounded better than vanished into clear sky with no explanation. Lieutenant Colonel Barnes kept searching for answers until the day he retired. He contacted every aircrew that flew the Pacific in April 1945, asking if anyone had seen anything unusual. Most hadn't. A few reported strange lights, unexplained radar returns, equipment malfunctions in the same general area. Nothing conclusive, nothing that explained where Lucky Lady went. The declassified file appeared in 1975, 30 years after our disappearance. By then, my parents were dead. Anderson's wife had remarried. Mitchell's mother had spent 3 decades wondering if her mathematician son had somehow calculated his way out of death and was living under an assumed name somewhere. Romano's mother died believing her son would come home. Researchers and mystery enthusiasts have offered theories over the decades: freak weather phenomena, magnetic anomalies, secret Japanese weapons, UFOs, time displacement, dimensional rifts. None of them explain the evidence, or rather, the complete lack of evidence. On April 3, 1945, at 0903 hours, 11 men climbed into a B-29 bomber on Iwo Jima. At 0913 hours, we transmitted a routine position report. 30 minutes later, we didn't. Somewhere in those 30 minutes, in unlimited visibility and perfect weather, Lucky Lady and her crew stepped out of the world. No wreckage, no bodies, no debris, no fuel slick, no radio call, no radar return, no explanation. Just 11 families with telegrams that said, "Missing in action," and a Pacific sky that swallowed us whole without leaving a trace. The ocean keeps its secrets, they say. But this wasn't the ocean's doing. Lucky Lady never hit the water. She was flying at 12,000 feet when she vanished, and she simply never came down. We're still out there somewhere, I suppose, in the space between one radio transmission and the next. In the 30 minutes that erased us from existence, flying forever in perfect weather toward a destination we never reached, carrying bombs we never dropped, searching for an airfield that will never appear on our horizon. Missing in action, presumed dead. But nobody knows where we went.